welcome you to this webinar, and we're going to be spending the next hour together. And I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. The topic of today is organizational leadership, and we're going to be explaining what the topic is all about. We will take you through a short journey through organizational leadership, and hopefully, if you like it, and you'll decide to invest further in this, I will give you the details later on. However, I am sure you're going to find it quite rich as a webinar with all the information I'm going to be sharing with you. And whether you decide to join us on a course or you like to continue your education on your own, I hope that this webinar provides you with the foundation and the ground floor to move on and expand your education and your learning. So I want to welcome you, and I want to I look forward to your participation. Just to manage expectations, we will have a few questions. So I'm going to be asking a few questions, and I look forward to your participation when it comes to these questions. I will share with you your input, and because we believe that having these questions asked will help you also retain a fair amount of information regarding the material that I'm going to be sharing with you. Again, my name is Jamal Saeed, and you're attending this webinar. I work for Meirc Training and Consulting, so it's a webinar sponsored by my company. I work for Meirc. I'm a partner at Meirc, and I will give you a bit of background about myself. And I want to welcome you again. So let's go ahead and start. So the first thing I like to talk about is, as I mentioned, we're going to be almost an hour with each other. And the name of the webinar is Organizational Leadership. A little bit about Meirc. I've been with the company for almost 7 years, and how time flies. And it has been a very, very special experience, I would say. 7 years where I had the chance to learn a lot. Even though I have an interesting background, I'm gonna share with you my background. You're gonna find out that it's never late to learn. So one of the key things I urge you to do is to always learn. This is something very critical today. In light of all the challenges and the disruptions and the ups and downs, you have to be an avid investor in your learning and your development. So please don't forget that. This is one of the key requirements today to accelerate in your job or excel in your job, accelerate your learning, and make sure that you deliver on a continuous basis. So a little bit introduction about Meirc. The company was founded in Beirut in 1958. We're currently headquartered in Dubai, and we are based in Business Bay, very nice area. So we're talking to you from sunny Dubai. If you're in Dubai or another location, I hope that you have good weather. Lately, the weather has not been very good in some countries. So our hearts reach out to those who have been affected by some severe weather. But here in Dubai, it's getting warmer. And so we hope that it continues this way. And so as you can see from the screen in front of you, we're based in Dubai. We have lots of products and services. We have a sister company called Trust Training. We focus on the industry-specific function-oriented training there. But between both companies, we can offer you a very rich portfolio of products. So do visit our website at meirc.com. Visit us there, and you will see a chat room in case you have any questions. Somebody will chat with you. As I said, don't hesitate from investing in yourself. It's very critical that you invest in yourself ongoing. Now, a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I'm going to share with you something about my background and why this course is so important from my perspective, why organizational leadership is so important, because as you can see, my background is pretty much urged me to invest in this product. So organization leadership is something that I developed at Merck, and the reason I developed it is because based on my experience in the international, some of the leading international companies. One is PepsiCo, the other one is Sun Microsystem. Sun Microsystem is no longer in the market. It has been acquired by Oracle and then Cisco. So I saw organizational leadership as a critical aspect of the success of organizations. So when I joined Merck, I decided to develop this particular course. And so it's a reflection of experience plus practical side of things plus readings that I have done. So it's a very rich course. And I hope that you can see this through the slides I'm going to be presenting you. So I, at Merck, I'm, you know, I deliver training courses on leadership management, strategy planning, sales and marketing, but I also do other courses on communication, negotiation skills, conflict resolution. Working with multinationals, I applied, you know, pretty much all of these skills, and you have to apply these things, and it's part of you being a competent manager and a leader. So what are the goals and the objectives of this course? Well, this particular webinar is reflecting pretty much what I would like to deliver, basically how to relate between organizational behavior and the leadership at the workplace. In my opinion, and those of the experts as well, leadership has an immediate direct impact, and of course sometimes indirect, but direct impact on the behavior of the employees, their style of management, how they address issues, how they solve problems. The same thing, we want to develop an understanding of how people operate at the workplace. So this is very important. This is another key thing that I hope I explain a little bit about it in this webinar. What are the different approaches of motivation? So we're going to be covering some theories here, and but at the same time, I like to make sure that you know, there are many things in the market that is taking place. And when it comes to motivation, there are some very good motivational approaches today. I might be covering some of the traditional ones, but I assure you that there are some good motivation techniques in the market. I will mention some of them, and you know, I will also discuss them in the courses that we give. And then, of course, you have this goal here, is that how do we communicate? And James Humes, he's a speech writer for, I think at the time of President Bush. He says that communication is leadership. So, and I can't agree with him more, because leaders have to be able to communicate very well. And in an organization, when you are driving an organization and you're developing its growth and you're putting its goals and objectives, and you're trying to motivate people to achieve certain direction or to achieve certain outcome and results, nothing beats communication and proper communication. So that is why in an organization, communication is very important. And then, of course, we like to analyze the difference between leadership and management. And then from there, what are the different leadership skills that we like to leave you with before we wrap up the webinar today. So leadership and organizational behavior. So here comes the first question that I'd like to ask you. My first question is, leadership has no impact on organizational behavior. True or false? So let me see how you would like to answer this. So well done, very good participation. That's excellent. So I want to welcome Elvi, I want to welcome Dwan Kamal, and I would like to welcome some of you. Fahad, welcome Fahad. I would like to welcome Rania. So Muhammad, welcome all of you guys. This is so good to see you, and thank you for being with us. So you're gonna find out that when I ask a question like this, because of the time, I might not give a lot of time for you to answer. So sometimes, you know, because of we have limited time, I have to end the voting. So right now we have, I would say I will stop it here. So let me end the voting. All of you answered in a very good way. So here we go, and I'm going to show you the results. So all of you said false, and well done. Leadership has a big impact on organizational behavior. So thanks to all of you who answered correctly. So I'm very proud of you. This is very, very good. So I'm going to now move on to the slides. And let me see. You go back. Here you go. So now, let me start with what makes leadership effective. Now, you may not have heard of this lady. And this lady, quite honestly, she is very, very interesting. She has some very interesting capabilities. First of all, she is the head and CEO of Duke Energy, which is one of the largest electric power holding companies in the United States, especially on the East Coast. So how did she define, what makes leadership effective? So when she was talking to, and she was thinking about the topic, she said, it is being the most effective person. So effective people, to me, get the most out of the team of people they are responsible for. So from her perspective, you don't have, as you can see here, it's not being the smartest person in the room. Being an effective leader doesn't mean that you are the smartest person in the room. Rather, it is the person who is making the best use and how they leverage people around them. Now, that is a very, very strong statement. So when you are in an organization, it is how you use the people around you, how you motivate them, how you leverage them, how you engage them. And this is very critical today. And it doesn't mean that we don't have smart people, not at all. That's not the issue. But you as a leader, how do you engage the organization? This is her definition, and I like that a lot. So leadership is getting the people behind them to move. I mean, this means that the people behind you, how do you get them to move, to change and deliver? And notice there's the word in the middle, change. And I think this is a key topic today, is that how do you get people to transform and change in light of all the changes that are taking place? And this has become a core topic for many of the organizations, if not all of them, how to change and adapt in this fast-moving environment. So this is a very, very interesting approach, that when we talk about leadership effectiveness, Lynn Wood, the CEO for Duke Energy, says that it is about getting the people behind you to work with you. How do you use them and how you leverage them? So talking about leadership effectiveness, it helps if we cover some leadership styles. So you as a leader, when you are effective, very important that you remember there are different styles of leadership, and each situation may require a certain style. Now, that is maturity from a leader to understand that based on this situation, I may have to apply a certain approach. Now, that takes emotional intelligence from the leader, that if a situation, for example, requires, if I am in a crisis, what kind of style would I do? Well, in a crisis, you probably will apply the commanding style. You probably will do that. But if I am trying to bring change, well, you have to be a visionary. You have to inspire people. If you are trying to, for example, bring people together, probably you have to be an affiliative person, how to get people to talk with each other. If you have a very big decisions on the table, and you want to hear people, or you want to hear people, their opinion, and maybe you want them to participate in this key decision, probably your style will be democratic. And so is the base setting, and so is the coaching. So as you can see, Daniel Goleman, when he talked about leadership styles, he alerts leaders that be careful of being stuck in one style, because your style may not fit situations. And so that's why when we look at leaders, we ask the question, are you able to work with the situation that you're in? Are you aware of the situation? But to be aware of the situation, you have to be aware of yourself. So this is very, very critical. Now, moving on to the next slide, you will see there's another way of looking at leadership. And this is where, Robert Blake and Jay Mouton, they talk about different interpretation of leadership, where they talk about, they distribute the leadership on the leadership management grid based on whether you are a people person, and here it is, or whether you are a production person. This means that you are task-oriented and you want to achieve results. And of course, you might reflect upon yourself and you say, you know what, I'm a kind of a people person. This means that you give people space to make decisions, make difference, participate, make decisions, you delegate to them. Sometimes you are very much task-oriented. So this means that you participate or you micromanage on many fronts. Sometimes you are in the middle of the road kind of manager. So you are 50-50. Sometimes you share, sometimes you pull back, and sometimes you are a team leader. Sometimes you work as a team, so you engage people. Sometimes you feel that you're part of the team, and this is very critical here. So Robert Blake and Jay Mouton, they talk about how do we behave in a situation as well, and definitely today more and more the stress is on the teamwork. So as you can see, we are moving more and more from this area over to this area right over here, because teamwork is becoming a core thing in many organizations. Collaboration is becoming a critical part of the organization. Why? Because we have to be innovative, we have to be creative, we have to work with each other to make these ideas come true. It doesn't mean that you don't work by yourself. That's not true. I mean, still, there are some people who are very much task-oriented or more delegative, but collaboration is becoming critical. So if I'm addressing the right audience, and most of you who are listening to this webinar are coming either, depending on your age, you will find out that more and more your organization is asking you to collaborate and work as a team. And so that is why, you have to have consent for production. You still have to achieve your results, but you have to achieve it through yourself and through others as well. So when we talk about leadership styles, we also talk about traits. So Peter Economy, he a best-selling author on leadership and management, he ranks some of these traits. And as you can see from the list here, the top one for Peter is decisiveness. So because things are moving, changing so much, time is of essence. I mean, you have to take decisions, but you have to be careful, because decisiveness is very critical. Decisiveness is not taking decisions fast. That's not the case. And lots of people mix between a fast decision and a decisive decision. A decisive decision means that you have studied the situation very well, you have analyzed it very well, you have understood the risk very well, and then you take a decision. And that's a big difference between just taking a decision fast. So this is important that you analyze the situation as a leader for the organization that you're working in, because based on that analysis and the understanding of the risks, you have to make a decision. So the question is, what's holding you back? The other trait is about awareness, focus, accountability, empathy. Empathy is so critical. There is a very interesting video for Satya Nadella. Probably you know the name, so probably some of you are aware of it if you're in the IT industry. But Satya Nadella is the CEO of Microsoft, and he will tell you how important empathy is for Microsoft. So empathy is very critical to understand not only your people within the organization. As a matter of fact, empathy is important today to understand your customer. So through empathy, when you're dealing with the customers, okay, this means that you understand their concerns, you listen to them, and above all, what's so exciting as well is that because of empathy, you come up with products that meet the customer's requirements, and that's very, very powerful, okay? And then you have confidence, optimism, honesty, and inspiration. Moving on. So what is an organizational culture? Organizational culture is a system of shared assumptions, values, beliefs, which govern how people behave in an organization. And that's so true. So when we talk about organizational leadership, leadership creates that culture. So the leader has to create that system of shared values. They have to let people know what the values are and beliefs and assumptions. And of course, you have the vision and the mission, all of these things, because you have to have some guiding principles to achieve the organizational results that you see. And that takes us to the next slide, which is very important. Look at this. Successful organizations, when they are building an organization that is very successful, they look at the organizational culture. That culture has to have certain characteristics. Today, the characteristics that organizations are focusing on quite a bit, number one is innovation. So as you can see, innovation is very, very critical here. The second one is attention to detail without wasting time. So you have to be very efficient here. The third one is you still have to emphasize on the outcome. And this is very critical. Why? Because all of the companies that you work for are outcome oriented, results oriented. So you still have to deliver on the goals and objectives that you are working on. But there's a huge emphasis on the people today. So as you can see here, this particular one, this is very critical. Organizations today are focusing more and more on the people. Now, I don't know what's happening in your area. You might say, Jamal, I don't agree with you. My organization is paying lots of attention to the people. But in general, when we do analysis and we do surveys, more and more organizations, and the number is quite high, they are focusing on the people because people are the generators of new ideas. So if an organization wants to grow, they have to listen to their people and count on them for new ideas, innovative ideas, creativity, how to solve the problem. So people are becoming quite important. So don't underestimate your capabilities. And of course, teamwork is very important, as you can see here. Aggressiveness in what sense? Aggressiveness means that you chase your goal, you achieve your goal, and you want to grow. You work toward these goals in a very aggressive way. I'm not talking aggressiveness that you attack people. No, that's not the intention here. And then at the same time, notice the contradiction that you have aggressiveness, but at the same time, you have stability. So how can you create in the organization today that sense of stability, but at the same time, that sense of adaptability? Two things that don't work together very well, yet you need them today. So today's leaders, when we look at leadership, organizational leadership, we look at that leader who is capable of doing the balance between, being stable and at the same time being able to provide that adaptability and that agility to the organization. That in mind, I move on to the next slide. So then, what is organizational behavior? So we talked about organizational culture. So what's organizational behavior? Well, organizational behavior studies the impact of individuals, groups, and structures, how they have on human behavior within the organization. So what we're talking about here is that the impact on individuals by the organization. So how are these individuals, the group, and the structures impacting me as an employee? So for example, the policies in the company, how are they impacting me? The team's formation, how they are impacting me as an individual, as an employee. The policies, how they are impacting me. All of these things, the pay scale, all of these ideas. And then on top of that, you also have the management style, the direction of the company, the industry that you're in. So as you can see, organizational behavior studies how an employee is interacting with these different elements that he is surrounded or she is surrounded with. So that takes us to something very important, and I will share with you some interesting trends that are happening in the market. But as you know, and you're very much aware, I'm confident of that, there are lots of changes in the market. We live in an age where changes are happening so much. I was giving a course today, and in the past couple of months, we started hearing more and more about the 5G. And probably you're saying, Jamal, what's 5G? Well, we have 3G, 4G, 5G. It is, mobile technology. And I want to tell you one thing, 5G is going to revolutionize how we use technology in many ways. So as a matter of fact, the 5G technology is going to accelerate how we do things in many ways, whether it is video conferencing, or whether it is tracking a car, whether it is doing certain things at home and or at work and participating with others. So 5G is going to revolutionize in many ways the way we do things. So as you can see on the technology side, things are just moving faster and faster. And that's why things are not slowing down. So an organization is going to face change not only within 3-4 years, could be in the next few years, it could be on an annual basis. We have to review, what we are doing. And that is why organizational leadership today requires lots of adaptability. And that is not only on the leadership's shoulders, it's on your shoulders as well. Because I am sure that many of you are supervisors and managers, and then you're being asked to participate in this rapid changing environment and how you interface with it. So that takes us to an interesting part. Now, in the 20th century, between 1920 up to 1985, something like that, with the introduction of the internet, things were very much stable. Believe it or not, things were relatively stable. But from 1985 onward up to 2000, things have moved quite a bit, and structures of the companies and the systems they use and the culture has changed completely. So the structure of a stable company, when it is very rigid, did not change, very much hierarchical. Now the structure of the company in the 21st century, especially today in 2019, is very agile, very shallow, fast moving, compared to something that was very big and heavy. Systems, the same thing. Systems were very rigid. You used to program, and program things takes you a few days. Now you have to deliver programming language or a program or an app within hours. So this is amazing. How about the culture? The same thing. The culture in the past was very bureaucratic. You have to take so many permissions to do something. Now you are very much empowered. Again, you might be saying, Jamal, that's not happening in my area. Well, I tell you one thing. You might be surprised how your organization is going to be responding to these changes, because if they don't respond, they will face some challenges in the market. So let's move on. This means that in these areas, we see lots of differences. So what are the key trends that we see? Business is becoming more complex. As you can see here, we have business complexity. Talent shortage. Believe it or not, even though the population on Earth is around 7.5 billion people, yet the talent shortage is amazing. Why? Because if I take, for example, Amina has certain skills in certain area. She goes for training, she gets certification, she starts using it. After 5-6 months, there's a new technology. So Amina did not update her talent when it comes to these technologies. And this is something very important, as you can see. This is something very important. That is why always train yourself, always teach yourself. Learning is extremely important today. Then you have development, investment in first-line leaders. So more and more companies are looking at more managers to make them leaders. Why? Because managers today, they have to take more on leadership role. And we're going to see this in a minute when I talk about differences between leadership and management. New leadership skills, employee engagement, that one is very big. Employee engagement. You won't believe how big this is. And companies that are going through this change, they will never achieve it unless they engage the employees. And then, as you can see, collective leadership. As you can see, collective means collaborative leadership. And then, of course, evolution of training, how training is evolving. Traditional training still exists and it's very valuable, but training today is becoming more interactive, more online, more workshops, more team-oriented, and lots of things are changing. Every industry in the world is being impacted by what technology is bringing on board. So this takes us to the next slide here. This is you. In many ways, this is you, even though, we have Generation Z as well. So Generation Z is already here. Many of you are graduating. Many of you are submitting your CVs to join organization. And Generation Z is different from Generation Y. Generation Y, we thought that this is a very interesting, generation. Why? Because you think differently. You have different skills. Certain things motivate you that did not motivate the previous generations that we had, probably my generations or the one before. You approach work relationship differently. You look at things differently. You value things differently. Mind you, what about Generation Z? Generation Z is very interesting. Why? Because they're very technology savvy. They know how to work with technology. They have different look at life. They know how to operate with ambiguity. And this is very interesting, very self-reliant. So when these people come to the organization, this is Generation Y and Generation Z. When they come to the organization, the style of leadership has to change. The way we look at things has to change. So as you can see, organizations and their behavior has to take these generations shifts into consideration. That being said, let's move to the next topic, understanding people at work. So let me ask you a question. Here comes the question. Individual differences matter at work. Yes, true or false? Let's see how you're going to answer this. Individual differences matter at work. Very good. Very good participation. Thank you very much. Excellent. I'll give you a few more seconds because I don't want to, I want to make sure everybody has a shot at answering this. Some of you might be listening from the mobile. Some of you might be listening from the notebook. So I really would like to thank you all for being with us today. So I think we've given people enough time. I'm going to end the voting, but all of you, whoever is on the call, you did very well. So yes, it is true. Individual differences do matter at work. So I'm gonna stop sharing this one. So well done there. And I'm gonna go back to the presentation. Now, let's start talking about, what is happening in the workplace. So individual differences matter at the workplace. We as a human being, especially today in our culture, okay, we bring our personality and our physical personality, our mental abilities, and our traits that distinguishes us. So when organizations are talking about they're hiring people, they take their time now on a couple of fronts. So it's very important that they look at two key areas. These areas that they look at, okay, are the following. So one of them is, does the person fit into the organization? It's called person organization fit. Do they fit from behavior perspective, culture perspective, the way they talk, the way they dress? And then you have the person job fit. So that's another thing that's very critical in how we look at behavior in organization. So first of all, we look at the person, do they fit from a culture point of view? The second part is, do they fit the job that they're going to take on? I was looking at a very interesting video the other day. Believe it or not, one of the traditional companies right now, they are encouraging people to have, fashion shows at workplace. They are encouraging people to do other things that they never did before in the workplace. Do you know why? Let me tell you why. Because the young generation that is coming into the workplace, they like to have fun. They like to do things differently. And in order to attract the young blood into the organization, some of the traditional organization or classical organizations are introducing new things into the workplace. So it's becoming quite interesting, as you can see. Companies are, in order to attract the young talent like you, they are changing the way that they behave, because people outside, they behave differently today. They have different value sets. So that's why organizations are really investing in how to attract people. So the values of a person the values a person holds will affect his or her employment. And there has been a big shift over the past 2 decades in terms of values of the workplace. The way we dress, the way we talk, the way we participate, the way we engage. And this is something very important in organizational leadership, as you can imagine. So when we talk about values, in many ways they reflect your personality. And personality encompasses the stability of the feelings, your thoughts, your behavioral pattern. So if a person has a stable personality, does this mean that he doesn't change? Well, interesting. Lots of people want to change, but it depends if you show them the way or not. Is our behavior in organization dependent on our personality? I think in many ways it is. And this is where we have to see some adaptability. And in due course in this presentation, we're going to be looking at, sometimes it's like building a contract between you and your manager. Do you like your manager or you don't? Okay, and this is one of the theories that we're going to be talking about in the workplace, and it's becoming quite important today. So when we talk about the traits of an individual, the big 5 personality traits that people focus on right now is openness. Are you curious? Are you creative? Are you open to new ideas? This is very critical today. Are you conscientious? Do you have the conscientiousness? This means that, are you organized? Are you systematic? Are you punctual? Now you might say, Jamal, punctuality is not important. On the contrary, even though we live in a very flexible kind of workplace, you still have to be punctual. You may not want to come to work on time, but you still have to deliver the project on time. So as you can see, punctuality can take different perspective. So I might agree with you, you don't have to come at 8:30, but I still need the project from you on that day. So as you can see, you have to be conscientious. This means that you are driving yourself, you're managing yourself, and I can depend on you. I can depend on you. Extroversion is very important. You have to be outgoing, talkative, sociable. Does it mean that people who are introvert are not good people? Not at all. On the contrary, we need introverts and we need extroverts. But I do encourage the introverts to be more open, because we have to participate more today. And I ask the extroverts as well to balance their extroversion as well. Okay. And then agreeableness. Can I talk to you? Are you trustworthy? Are you warm? And as you can see, agreeableness has to do a lot with communication skills, and that's also very critical. On the flip side of agreeableness is neuroticism. Are you anxious, irritable? If I talk to you, would you shout in my face? So all of these things are critical traits today, and I ask you to evaluate yourself on that front. So that takes us to the next slide. What do we do? Attitude, in many ways, the attitude that you have dictates whether you are satisfied with your job or not, and also dictates whether you're committed to the organization or not. So as you can see, the foundation of organizational leadership, it starts with yourself. Are you leading yourself toward good results? And organizational leadership means that, are you happy with your job? If you're happy with your job, you can achieve your goals and you can do very well. The other part is that if you're happy with your job, you are committed to the organization. And then it's the other way around. So this thing works both ways. This is pushing for this, and this is pushing for this. Both things are happening. If you're happy with your job, you like your organization, you're more committed to it. And if you're committed to the organization, you're happy with your job. And that's what many human resources managers, leaders always try to achieve, is that kind of job satisfaction commitment in place. And that is, in many ways, what we call employee maturity. So companies look at the attitude. When they are hiring somebody and they see, does this person fit into a job or do they fit into the organization? That's what they want to achieve at the end of the day, because they look at the attitude and does this person, can we invest in this person for the long run? So what causes positive work attitude? Now, based on the studies that has been accomplished in many ways, there are several reasons. One of them is your personality, your attitude. As you can see, this is very, very critical, because it's not the job satisfaction and organizational commitment. Organizational commitment, you can break it into these 8 parts. First of all, your attitude. Second, your job characteristics. Maybe the job is not very nice. So why don't you take a stab at fixing your job? Talk to your manager and say, can I do my job differently? The other one is organizational justice. I call it organizational fairness. Is my organization fair to me? Means that, am I being paid the right way? Or do they treat me the right way with respect? Is my manager fair to me? Do they give me the promotion in the right time if I do my job very well? All of these things are very important. So as you can see, this impacts our attitude very much. Stress, oh my goodness. I just mentioned about the amount of change and the pace of change. And change and transformation is a source of stress for us. So as you can see, this could impact our attitude. And that is why I ask you, all of you on this call, be cognizant of the stress factors and try to manage your stress in a very, very good way. And then, of course, you have the person environment fit. As you can see, this is very important. Do you fit in the organization? Do you fit in the values of the company? Do you like the values of the company? Do you like the company? This is very important, because this could impact your attitude toward your job. Psychological contract. This is very important. There's, even though you don't sign something called psychological contract, you sign a work contract, but there is a psychological contract at the end of the day between you and the company. You are committed. That commitment is a psychological contract, and I want you to be aware of that. This is very critical today. And then, of course, work relationships and work-life balance. So when we do this, what makes the workplace happy? I hope that wherever you are, you are happy at work. To me, this is something that I wish everybody that they are happy at work, because all of us went through a job where you were not happy. Well, if you're not happy, it's difficult to perform, and sometimes you'd make the difficult decision to move on to another job because you're not happy at the workplace. So either you try hard to make it a better place, and sometimes you have resistance and you may not have a difficult manager, or sometimes you end up leaving because this is not the place for you. So I hope and I wish that wherever you are happy. So happiness in the workplace has several areas. First of all, based on Mark Williamson, who is the Action for Happiness Director, he talks about 4 key areas for happiness in the workplace. First of all, autonomy. Do you have control? Do you feel that you have control over your job? This is why we talk about delegation. This is why we talk about empowerment. Autonomy, to a certain extent, is about how much control do I have over my job. Today, it's very critical. Second is relationship. Do I have people that I like in the workplace, or do people pick on me? So see, this is something very critical here. Maybe cultural issues arise here. So that is why in organizations, it's very important that they handle their cultural issues, because differences in culture could create, difficult relationships. The other one is progress. If I work in an organization, can I progress in it? And the last one is meaning. Meaning has two things. First of all, does the job give me meaning as as a person? Do I feel that I'm adding to my value? The other one, am I adding to the company? So when we talk about meaning, it works both ways. Am I adding value to the company? Am I adding value to yourself? And these are very, very critical. So as you can see, when we talk about your attitude, attitude drives behavior, and your behavior will impact the job performance. You'll impact your citizenship, will impact your absenteeism, and you will impact your turnover. So when we talk about your attitude and your organizational behavior, these four areas are very critical. They start coming out, and each one of them can be easily measured today. So job performance, for example, how good are you doing? How high is your productivity? Are you finishing all your goals? Are you able to achieve all your objectives? How about citizenship? Citizenship means responsibility to the company. Do you break things at work and you don't care? If you see, for example, something on the ground, would you pick it up or would you just leave it and say, you know, I don't like it here? All of this is very interesting. We see behaviors in different shape and form, and I'm sure that you at work see these things happening all the time. Absenteeism is very critical, and many companies suffer from absenteeism, and organizations, this is very critical for them because if absenteeism is high, productivity is low. So that is why, you know, they have to look at the whole thing and say, how can we reduce absenteeism, increase citizenship? You know, if I put an arrow, this has to go up and citizenship has to go up, but definitely I want to reduce absenteeism and I want to reduce turnover. Turnover is a bit of an issue as well. So these areas, we like to make sure that in order for us to get the best behavior, we have to work on these KPIs or these measures. So taking that into perspective, sometimes ethics play a big role in how we behave. And, and I'm confident that you hear every day on the radio or on the social media or on the internet, you hear about ethical issues in the workplace. And one of the key things that make people leave the work is the ethical standards of the company. Because if a company is ethical, they will take care of the job performance, they will take care of the citizenship, they will take care of the absenteeism, and they will take care of the turnover. But sometimes ethics, you know, is a challenge. And ethics is basically mismanaged values where, you know, you make decisions that are against the company policy or moral values in the workplace in general. And that is very important. It's very critical to fix. So in successful organizations, ethical standards are very, very high, especially on the leadership front, because leaders are the one who bestow or reflect those values. And when employees see that the leaders are behaving in a certain way, they follow them. So this means that ethical climate is very important for you. And I'm confident that you see that in your workplace. So this takes us to the following slide. As you can see here, this is a very nice slide. Why? Because when you have high level of commitment and citizenship, and when you have a high level of problems and commitments, notice what's happening. Means that this organization is alive. This organization, they have high ethics, they know how to fix problem, they don't sleep on the problem, they speak when the problem happens, they come up with new ideas, they support each other. So a healthy organization, it has high level of commitment and citizenship, and yes, they have problems and complaints because they try things. Isn't that interesting? So you might be saying, Jamal, but having high problems and complaints, this means that it's a problem. Not at all. Because today you have to try things, you have to experiment with things. So you're going to have problems and you have complaints. So this means that you're progressing, you are moving in the right direction. That's why innovation is very important today. But innovation will not happen unless you experiment. And it will not happen unless you try new things. So this is why you want to be here. High levels of commitment and high levels of problems and complaints. This means that you are trying new things. Your company is empowering you to do certain things. Moving on. So leadership and organizational motivation. I'd like to ask a question. Job performance is viewed as a function of motivation, ability, and environment. True or false? Let me see how good you are. Let me see how good you are. Here we go. Job performance is viewed as a function of motivation, ability, and environment. Okay, good, good. We have some, yeah, thank you for your participation. Well done, well done. Good. I'll give you a few more seconds. Maybe we'll have another vote. Okay. So very good. So I'm going to stop the voting just for the sake of time, as I mentioned. So for those of you who said true, well done. I'm going to share the results with you, and here you go. So well done to all of you. You did very, very well answering the question. Now I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to move back to the slide. So now, yes, you are right. The job performance is viewed as a function of motivation, ability, and environment. So you did very, very well. And what does this mean? This means that how to motivate people. So the first part of that formula is motivation. And as you can see, motivation comes in different forms and shapes. I'm not going to go into each one of them, but these are some of the theories of motivation. I encourage you to read more about it. So you have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have ERG. ERG and Maslow are very similar. They just reorganize things differently, but they are pretty much the same. Herzberg is very nice. It's based on two-factor theory. Some of it has to called hygiene, some of it is called motivation. And then you have McClelland. McClelland is an interesting one, and he does stress the impact of power here. So I want you to read all of them. These are very, very nice motivation theory. And the other side, so the one that I just talked about, is need-based. So these are the need-based theory. As you can see here, this is the need-based theory. And then you have the process-based theory. The process-based means that equity. Now, equity is an interesting one. Equity, it happens all the time. For example, you are working at work, you're doing your work, and you did not get a reward for the work. Your friend is doing the same work, and he or she gets a reward. Now, what's happening? Equity means how equitable your workplace is. Do they reward you like somebody else, or is there some bias in the workplace? And this happens all the time. So equity theory is very powerful today, and I recommend you read more about it because it depends on the input that you give and the output that you, on the input and the output. And the output is definitely what you getting out of the input that you are putting into your organization or into your work. Then expectancy theory, for example, the expectancy from the work that you're doing. And then reinforcement theory, this is very powerful. And this is very much on the psychological side of things where you reinforce certain behavior. So these 7 theories, I want you to read more about it, be familiar with them, and I want you to expand into it. But the one I would like to focus on is this one. One of the key things to motivate workplace is you have to have a good job design. Always make sure that the jobs are designed very well. And a good job design has some goals in it. And any job that has goals in it, you can manage its performance. So this way you can give your performance. And because I'm performing well, I can give rewards. So that is why these 4, if you do them very well, you can have a very highly motivated environment. In addition to the motivation theories we talked about, these 4 areas are critical for you as a manager, supervisor, team leader, or a director. Always make sure that the job is designed very well, the goals are set, always give feedback, and always reward good performance. If you do that, I think that you're going to have a highly motivated workplace. So, empowerment, what does it happen? Empowerment takes 2 shapes. Structural empowerment, this means that you are in an organization and they give you a job, they give you a job and they give you authority with that job. Felt empowerment is interesting. Felt empowerment means that do they really mean it when they say, you can come up with ideas and you can do this and can do that? Do we feel the empowerment in the workplace? I may not have authority, but I can behave in a certain way or give ideas and participate. And this is something interesting when it comes to empowerment. So you have 2 kinds of empowerment here. I don't know what you have in your workplace, but I hope that this is jotting some ideas. So empowerment is very critical. The other part is smart objectives and smart goals. And as you can see, this is very critical here. Every time you write a goal or an objective, make sure it is smart. I'm not going to talk much about because I'm sure you're familiar with it. Last but not least is performance appraisal. That's where feedback comes in, feedback and rewards. Every time that you have job descriptions in place and you have your goals and you have the performance and the feedback and you have all of these things, appraisal is going to happen. This is very motivating for the employees, but at the same time, it can be demotivating because sometimes the meetings of appraisal meetings are not the best meetings. It's very stressful. The employee feels a little bit stressed. Maybe they are not happy with their performance. But in general, performance appraisals are about you as an employee, and that's how it should be. It should be focusing on you and on your development. So here comes to the second module, leadership and organizational communication. We're going to be talking communication here. I'm going to ask you a question. So here comes the question number 4. And the question here, you can be very successful leader if you lack strong communication skills. Let's see. Can you answer this one for me? You can be a very successful leader even if you lack strong communication skills. Let's see. Well done. Well done. To those all of you who are participating, I want to thank you all. I want to welcome Doris. Amina, thank you for being with us. Jitender, well done. I want to thank you for being with us today as well. And we have Muhammad Zamir Hussain, also thank you. Rania, thank you for being with us. So let me see, we have some answers here. So that's very good, good. I'm gonna end the voting with your permission, just to show you what happened here, okay? So, there you go, there you go. So we have, you answered false, that's so true. Remember what I said at the beginning, James Hume said it, communication is about leadership. So I'm going to share the results with you. So well done. You did very, very well there. I'm very proud of you. And I'm going to now move on. So what's communication? In business, poor communication costs money. You know what? I don't know if you are following some of the events on the aviation industry, but recently there has been some interesting development on the aviation industry. And one particular company has failed in communication. And I think the cost of that is going to be very high simply because they did not communicate very well. I don't want to mention the names because we have to get the idea behind it, what's going on. But if you communicate very well, you can actually make money. And if you don't communicate well, you can actually cost yourself money. So one study found that 14% of each work week is wasted on poor communication. That's amazing. So in context, effective communication is an asset to organization, and good communications helps company retain its star employees. So how does the communication process look like? Well, you have the sender over here, you have the receiver, and then of course you have the medium in between. Are you using a mobile phone or something? But most importantly is the message and the response to the message. And then of course you have always noise in the middle. So you have to manage that communication process, and if you do very well at it, you are a good communicator. As you can see, this is the division of the communication. So miscommunication can happen between the sender and receiver. We come from different cultures. It could also happen because I'm not a very good listener. It could happen because the medium is wrong. It could happen because there are misalignment between the verbs I use and what the other person believes the verb is, and so on and so forth. So it's very important that you think about communication very carefully. That being said, there are 3 types of communication that are important in organizations. In organizations, verbal communication is very important. And then you have, of course, written communication. And we can write through websites, WhatsApp, whatever. So these are all written communication, by the way. And then you have non-verbal. Non-verbal is your body language. So when we do these things, you remember, you have to be very good at all 3 today. So this is why, managers spend the time talking and communicating. And as you can see, okay, the split of a manager communication time, 46% they are communicating with subordinates, 14% they're communicating with other supervisors, 17% they are focusing on internal and others, and externally it's 23%. So as you can see, some very interesting communication. As a matter of fact, we are spending our time communicating. So why don't we become very good at it? That's why in organizations, successful organizations, they stress on the value of communication. So leadership and management. I have another question for you. So here we go. I'm going to ask you the following question. Question number 5. There are no differences between leadership and management. True or false? Let's see. There are no differences between leadership and management. Let's see your participation. Very good, very good. Well done. Wow. I hope you're enjoying the webinar, and I hope that you're taking notes, and I hope that you use this webinar as a launch pad to other things that you like to do. So we have some interesting answers. I can see that. I'm gonna share with you now the voting. I'm gonna end the voting with your permission. Well done. Somebody managed to squeeze an answer in. So here we go. So this is showing the questions for you. So some of you said false. Majority of you said false, and there is no difference. Well, I agree with you. There is a difference. One of you said true. Well, in many ways you might be true, but the answer is false. And let me tell you why. Because in the next screen, you're going to see some differences here. Here we are. As you can see, there are differences here. These are differences that are based on an article that came out in the Wall Street Journal, a very, very nice article, well written. And as you can see, the differences is that the manager administers and the leader innovates. The manager is a copy, the leader is an original. The manager relies on control, right over here. And then the leader inspires trust. The manager has his or her always on the bottom line. The manager imitates where the leader eyes on the horizon and the leader originates. But the one that I really like is the one at the bottom. The manager does things right. The leader does the right thing. Isn't that interesting? Now, for the person who mentioned yes, I just would like to give you a comfort level that in many ways, all of these managers are being asked to perform leadership role. Why? Because in light of all the changes that are taking place, we're asking managers to embrace change and start leading more and more, because the traditional leader is not able to cope with all the changes in the market. So in many ways, managers are becoming more leaders, but the differences will remain. Some differences will remain. That being said, okay, leaders have to work with groups. So as you can see, group dynamics is very important. And sometimes you have the informal working groups where some people work together, maybe without any particular goal, okay? They are not assigned by the organization. And then you have the formal work where they are assigned by the organization and they have to work on a project. And when you do these things, usually groups go through a stage. And probably you have heard of Bruce Tuckman. Bruce Tuckman is a psychologist. And he says, when we form teams, teams go through forming, then storming. Storming means that they fight with each other, trying to, elbow each other, find their place in the team. Then norming, they accept each other. Performing, they start performing at higher level. And adjourning, basically breaking up the team. So what does happen? What does it mean? So this means that teams go through stages, and this is very, very critical. And leaders have to understand the team leadership, the concept of team leadership, and the concept of autonomy. And we talked about autonomy, that autonomy is a motivator for many people. So there are teams also vary in how they are managed. So as you manage yourself, there are, we also vary in the way we manage teams. One is traditional managers-led teams, self-managed teams, and self-directed teams. Traditional manager-led team means that the manager still has the decision-making and he directs the team. Self-managed teams, the team manages itself, but they vote on the decisions, and managers provide advice, and in many ways, maybe they still own the decision, but they leave the team to operate somehow independently. Self-directed teams, the manager doesn't do much. The team makes the decisions, they move on and everything. That's very exciting, by the way. And that's what's happening today, especially in IT companies and many companies that are replicating the IT environment. So team management means creating team norms, roles, and expectations. It also requires that you have to run your team very effectively. And this takes you back to the definition that we started with Lynn Wood. If you remember Lynn Wood, what's the definition of an effective leader? An effective leader is the person who knows how to use the people around them best. Now, that being said, okay, problems will always arise. And people, because of the different cultures, different background, different job descriptions, problems will arise. So conflicts will arise. And some of the challenges will arise in light of all the problems that faced by the team. Challenges of knowing where to begin, dominating team members. Some team members are very dominating. Poor performance of team members, and poorly managed team conflicts. This means that when we look at sources of conflict, it happens because of the ambiguity in tasks, scarce limited resources, communication breakdown. And this is something I referred to previously. And I told you that one of the key things in the job and satisfaction when developing happiness in the workplace and satisfaction in the workplace, job clarity is very important. So that's why that is very important. But I want to tell you one thing. Conflict is not bad. When you have a certain level of conflict, you have high productivity. Why? Because people are engaging, people are talking, people are making decisions, and people are solving their problems. But you don't want to be in this area. This is not good. And you don't want to be in this area because that's also not very good. Here, people are very aggressive. You want to have a healthy conversation and healthy disagreements. That's why we have to disagree, but doesn't mean that we, break down, we have breakdown communication. So as you can see, in light of conflict, you have 5 styles of conflict management. You have the competing style, my way. Well, it happens. You have avoiding, where they don't participate or they pull back from any conflict. Compromising halfway, accommodating, okay, I'll let you do it this time, but this is my favorite one here, the collaboration. Now, moving on, we're wrapping up pretty much. We're reaching to the end of our presentation. I have a question for you, and then I'll start wrapping up. Behaviors of people-oriented leaders include showing concern for employee feelings and treating employee with respect. True or false? Let me see. Behavior of people-oriented leaders include showing concern for employee feelings and treating employee with respect. That's a very nice question. I don't believe I wrote it. So here we go. Oh, I want to thank you for hanging around a little bit more than the hour. So I want to thank you guys. I really want to thank you. So here we go. Let me stop or end the voting here, and I'm going to share the results. So I want to thank all of you. You did very well here. You made my day, because toward the end of the day, this tells me that you're still awake, and that's fantastic. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go now to the slides, and I want to tell you, well done. Well done. Traits and approaches to leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, the leadership have certain traits. Like you have certain traits, leadership have certain traits. And recently, we have seen some interesting attributes being developed by the leaders. What are they? Here we have some of them. The key traits associated with leadership is integrity. Integrity comes with ethics, intelligence. We need intelligent leaders, or I don't want geniuses, but they have to be smart, huh? Extroversion, be able to communicate with people and talk with people. Conscientiousness or consciousness, people who are, ethical, open to experience, and self-esteem. They are still very strong. Does it mean that this is what's happened outside? Well, we always have exceptions, unfortunately, and we learn from exceptions. That being said, behavioral approaches of leadership. What does it mean? We have those who are task-oriented, and we have those who are people-oriented behavior. Remember, we talked about this one before. So there are those leaders who focus on the task only, and there are those who focus on the people, but the best leaders can focus on both. And that's very critical today. So both types of behavior in the aggregate are beneficial to the organization, but what we need is those who can focus on both of them. This means that there are 3 kinds of decision-making styles. You have the authoritarian, commanding, democratic, teamwork, and laissez-faire means that asking people to make a decision and delegating to them. That takes us to the following. Look at this one. In Hersey-Blanchard's situation leadership table, this is very critical, because when Hersey-Blanchard, they talk about situation leadership, they tell you that when somebody is low competent and highly committed, try to use a directive behavior with them, means that tell them, because they're not competent. However, when competency is low and commitment is low, try to coach. But when there's competency is moderate and commitment is variable, try to be supportive. And when competency is high and commitment is high, try to delegate. This is where the laissez-faire is. When people are competent and highly committed, let them do what they are supposed to do, because they are highly competent. And I want to give you a secret. Competency is made up of 3 things. Competency is made up of skills, attitude, and knowledge. And attitude is very, very critical. So that's why when you are talking about competency, don't remember this rule: skills, attitude, and knowledge. Now, that being said, okay, this is another way of context. The role of context means that how do managers make a decision? The reason I like this slide is because Vroom and Yeton came up and they said we need to help leaders and managers make decisions better. So what they did is that they ask the leader certain questions before they arrive at a decision. So they ask the leader, for example, how significant is the decision? If the decision is very highly significant, then they choose accordingly. And based on that one, they start going down until they reach a certain set of decision-making capabilities right at the bottom. Very, very interesting. I want you to read more about Vroom and Newton because that's what we call the decision tree. And believe it or not, some of the top leaders use this one almost on a daily basis. That being said, the recent additions in leadership, we have transformation leaders who are dealing with transformation quite a bit. This is the top level of leadership in my book. We have leader-member exchange. This is where leaders kind of have contracts with their employees. Servant leadership, leaders who serve their organization. And authentic leadership, those leaders who believe in their values and in what they believe. Now, that being said, transformation leaders have 4 tools in their mind and in their possession, and I like to focus on transformation because this is very critical. It would be nice if they are charismatic, inspirational, intellectual situation. This means that they are aware of the situation, and individualized consideration. What does it mean? This means that they give everybody enough time that they feel special, and that's not an easy one. So as you can see, leaders today are being pushed to the limit when it comes to their leadership skills. And what surprises me is that many leaders deliver, and that tells you how adaptable we are as human beings. The exchange, as you can see here, leader-member exchange, is that the leaders have certain requirements, employees have certain requirements, and they try to broker some sort of an exchange. I give you this, you give me this. Interesting. Is it the psychological contract? Well, could be similar to something like that. Remember, the role of ethics is very important here. Ethical leaders, we will never run out of style. We need more and more ethical leaders. And for those who are still with us on the phone, I ask you to always embrace yourself and protect yourself with a golden shield of ethics, because that's the best protection at work. And that is the one that helps us reduce the stress in the workplace, because it makes us feel that we're doing the right thing. That being said, I'd like to wrap up the course today, or the webinar. Here are some interesting books for you to read. I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and then take note of these books. And by the way, if you're interested in the presentation, send me a note and I'll be more than happy to share it with you. This presentation and the material that you just saw is free, so I'll be more than happy to share a PDF copy. And here's my email. My email is at jsaeed@meirc.com. The website is meirc.com. And then my LinkedIn, if you're interested in joining my network, is, just go into LinkedIn and type Jamal Saeed without any space in between. I will come up and you will see my face. And here we have some interesting dates for upcoming courses. So we have something coming up in April. We have something in July, in September, and in December. It's a wonderful course. I hope to see you if you decide to join us. And for Amina, yes, Amina, you can have a copy. Taysir, you can also have a copy, buddy. Just send me an email to jsaeed@meirc.com. This email right over here, send me an email, and I or my colleague, Mr. Maroof, who always helps me out in these, we will send you a presentation. I want to thank you for today. Thank you for taking the extra time to be with us. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend, and let's hope that we stay in touch. And I look forward to your attendance on future webinars or courses with Meirc in Dubai or otherwise in Kuala Lumpur or other cities. Have a wonderful weekend and stay safe and always learn. This is my message to you. Take care.
Meirc.com